what I'm doing, I would be like, yeah, right. But if you would have told the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old Samella, I would have probably, that sounds really far-fetched. So anything is possible if you're willing to work to get it done.
Everyone, this is Charles Shima. I'm the founder, chief storyteller of Terrific. Welcome to Be Inspired podcast. And today I have an amazing guest, the one and only Samella. And yeah, I've been really looking forward to talk to her for a while now. And as I launch this podcast, she's the guest. She's going to tell you about the amazing things she's been building for the last few years. A quick hint, she's a founder of Block, which is home exchange platform. Pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for putting this together and making it a mission to inspire, whether it's the youth, whether it's early entrepreneurs. So I'm sure this is going to do a lot for them and also do a lot for us. It's always cool for us to jump on the phone, hash some things out, especially as some travel tech founders. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with me today. And so as we jump into things, it's always myself being a founder and probably so in the travel tech, that's where we are. It's who are you and what's your journey? How did you get here? It's because most people don't know that being a founder, it's not as glamorous as we seem to see. I mean, we always look at the founders who have made it, but the journey. But just take us to the beginning, because you were doing something else until you launched. So yeah.
Yes. I'm going to try to tell the Samella story in like a compacted few moments. So I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised. Kind of just moved to Miami for a better life. I was there for 11 years. And when I moved there, it was just for fun, weather, beautiful, yay, new lifestyle. Well, unbeknownst to me, while working in hotels, I seen an opportunity to start my first company, which was Samella. And so it was rebranded to Samella. And I think these are important pieces to kind of shine light on, because when you start the journey, you think that it's just one straight path. Absolutely not. And I'm still here kicking. So I'm really excited about being here, but it's not one straight path. So I want to demystify that immediately. But it started out as a guest experience platform. Ideally, we was working with boutique hotels, B&B hosts, and what we were doing was essentially giving them a guest experience app that they can white label so that they can start better services and offer their guests more curated experiences while increasing their ancillary revenue. In the midst of building that, I followed another signal and got the call for another signal, and that was the rental arbitrage model, which made us transition from Samella, which is its own entity, to Block now. And it's so funny because Block is now even in a pivot, so we'll dive into that. But Block, when we launched in 2023, last year, when we launched, we started taking customers. We were essentially helping them start their own short-term rental business. So think of Block as originally as the landlord for short-term rental, right? People will rent from us and the apartment will be turnkey, lights on and everything. And then we will then be their landlord so that they can go and run their own short-term rental business. While we was able to see some success, I ran into a lot of roadblocks just because of the unknown. I was new to it. But overall, I was blessed with some amazing early customers. But as of September 2023, I'm sure the rest of the world is aware, but short-term rentals, specifically Airbnb, took a really big ding because they unfortunately are no longer able to operate in the New York City market. which took down well over 30,000 listings. And so here's this visionary antenna start buzzing again. And so while it was buzzing again, I took some time to do some deep research, think about who I really want to serve. And so where we landed is in the midst of like the affordability crisis, in the midst of the short-term rental challenges, in the midst of people wanting to just simply become, but not sure how to become, we landed on a home exchange marketplace, which is what we're preparing to roll out and kind of reintroduce. But although we had 3 different paths, they're all very still aligned with each other, and that is service. At our core, we were building a business to serve other people who also wanted their business, but they just needed a little help to maybe fine tune or connect the dots. And so while I still share that same honor to serve our customers, this time around, we're just going to be able to create a vibrant community of people who say, hey, I want to travel, or I'm already traveling and I'm spending thousands of dollars on a quarterly basis. We're helping them focus on saving 80% less in traveling more. And so I'll stop there. Yes. But, that's kind of who I am. And I've made the transition from Miami to New York.
Yes. There's a bit of Beyonce like movement there, suddenly she's going into the
I'll take it
into the country. That's also like a private because it's not the Beyonce style we have known.
Exactly.
Now I'm glad you sort of touched on the platform, and we are really going to get into that more, because it's most of us, we have heard of the short-term rentals, Airbnb, and you name it, but we haven't really sort of grasped what it is that you are building as a home exchange program. And that's very fascinating. Where I'm always curious is what we as founders, we have our story. And I would like to, you say, from Chicago, I was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now I am in Canada. And the truth be told, also, one of the goals of my podcast is really to bridge the global African diaspora, because me being raised mostly on the continent of Africa, now living in Canada for the last 25 years, the community where I feel that have not built strong connections is with the Black / African Americans or Canadian, and because most of the story we hear is maybe through music or TV, but mostly music, and we always hear about this life in the ghetto, and unfortunately it's all mostly negative, right? And I listen to a lot of stand-up comedy show, Eddie Murphy, and Chris Rock. Chris Rock is one of my favorite. And so that's pretty much, you see, that image I have. So just, if you may, for the listeners on the continent of Africa or anywhere, just how is life for you as a Black lady growing up in Chicago? Is it as sort of, I don't want to say, is it as how we see it in the media, or is there something you want to share about your upbringing?
Yeah. So, you know how you always think that it's worse, and then when you see it, you're like, oh, it's not that bad, right? Like, oh, this is, we do this back home, or this, right? And so it's so funny that you asked that, because as I mentioned to you before, I'm from Chicago, but I've been gone for 11 years. Well, we've had 4 deaths in our family since January, right? And so hence I've been in Chicago for 2.5, almost 3 months now. And so it really, 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 while those were sad moments for our family, there were also beautiful moments because it made me specifically as a founder, before I take off to the world and start making all this noise about Block, it made me sit back and reflect on my upcoming, my break, like who are you, Samella, and what part of the world, what part of you do you want to share with the world, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I am so honored to have walked the walk that I did as a youngin'. And so life wasn't easy. I did not have a silver spoon. I had to be what I dubbed myself as a figure-outable, right? Because I come from a large family. In my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family, those grandmothers, 90-year-olds, they were best friends too up until January. They were best friends. And so the families were always connected. But to your point, coming up, it was not easy, but it wasn't as aggressive or as rough as I feel the kids have it now, because our safe space and our way of evolving and growing was community. Right. Mm-hmm. And so hence being able to build Block now, right? I had a strong community around me. I had aunties, uncles, cousins, distant cousins, little cousins, right? And so while things were not handed to me, there was a special honor in finding it, one, and being curious enough to find it. And then that Dora the Explorer in me just took me out on a journey to Miami. My move to Miami was never even, I had no idea that I would be right here saying that I started 2 different tech companies. But because I was hungry enough, I was curious enough, I went on a journey. Now, once I start taking the journey, challenges came up, but the more I learned about myself, the more I was able to put practices in place. And the truth is, from my childhood to now, all of those things that I was dealing with from a child is literally the foundational work that I can transition to my founderhood. Hence, me being able to overcome the adversities as a founder, right? So if I wouldn't change it, I'm gonna be honest with you, if I had a silver spoon in my mouth and this founder journey came along, I probably would have gave up. Like, mom and dad got the money, I'm good, we're great over here, no thank you. But because that wasn't my story, and I was so adamant and hungry about creating a new story for my family, I kept going. But now, because I'm reconnected to my why, and because I'm honored to carry on these 4 family members who we just lost in this year alone, I can carry their legacy. I can carry the beautiful parts about them that they instilled in me, because I've had personal relationships with them all. I can carry that and help shift because I'm still here for a reason. And so I'm a strong believer, if you're going to do something, make it great. So my childhood was rough, but it was rough enough to give me the core foundational skills so that I can navigate this founderhood, because that's also rough, but it's a beautiful thing because the return on investment is so much greater than the struggle bus in the process.
Yes, yeah. And you have found, I believe, you have found an inspiration from your background to build Block, because you were mentioning about the 2 90-year-old, are they your grandmas, right?
My grandma, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, and then the Dora I knew, you made a move from Chicago to Miami. So paint that picture. How is that?
I didn't have any friends.
Community and yeah.
It's really amazing when you as a individual make your mind up about something and you actually go through with it. It's beautiful to see what it turns into, because when you're in the midst of doing it, you're just focused on getting it done, right? And so the whole time I was in Miami, I knew that I had an amazing network. I knew that I had great people, right? But when I moved is when I felt it. I felt the love. I felt the community. Everybody's like, well, I got this person in New York. I'm going to connect you here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Go to this conference, right? But before I moved to Miami, I did not have a savings. I did not know one single person in Miami at all. All I knew is I have hospitality experience and I've worked at plenty of hotels, and Miami has plenty of hotels. And I trusted my personality, or like the way that I show up in the world, and then the faith, of course, faith in God. Those three things was enough to make me take the leap. And again, the leap was weather, great lifestyle. But when I got there, I then decided, okay, so what type of life do you want to have in Miami, right? And so then I started being curious and started going into those little circles, going to networking events. And at the very beginning, I was shy. I was not confident. I felt like I was being called to something and I was not equipped for it. But the more I learned about me, the closer I got with God, he was showing me, nope, remember in your childhood this happened? Boom, that's perfect for this situation. Remember when you overcame this as a 12-year-old? Boom, that's perfect for this situation, right? And so the more I became closer and connected to my why, the more I start putting my feet on the gas. And I, not to brag at all, but I am pretty connected in an honorable way in Miami, from community to entrepreneurship to tech to actually quality friends to the hotels that I worked at, right? And so it was a beautiful thing, but I gave myself permission to reinvent myself, to change, right, and evolve, not change just because, oh, I used to be this way and I'm not going to be this way. No, to decide, who do you really want to become and what does it cost to become her? And this was before I even know to put language to it, right? It was just in my behavior. I was just doing these things. And then when I left Miami to New York, with the pit stop in Chicago, I realized I am so loved. And then even coming back home, my family was excited to have me here. So even when you take the journey of discovery, it's not so much about anybody else, because sometimes we feel guilty, especially like saying that you're building something in Africa and you want to come to the States because the audience is better. The guilt of leaving your family, the guilt of not being there, the fear of not having somebody there with you, those are enough things to stop people dead in their tracks. But I am living proof that you can go wherever you want and build whatever life you want, because you can do it. I did it, and I'm going to do it again in New York. So, and now I'm going to put the strategies that I've learned, the networking skills that I've learned to practice, so that when I get to New York, I can hit the ground running. And I'm going to leverage my existing community who has made the offer to make introductions and interviews and those things. And coming on podcasts like this to be able to share my story, because I think it's important for people to know, because we count ourselves out before we even start, only because we have not heard or seen someone else that looks like you, that shares the same struggle or challenges as you. Well, if you would have told me 7 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing, I would be like, yeah, right. But if you would have told the 12-year-old, the 15-year-old Samella, I would have probably laughed in your face, if I'm being honest with you, because I'm like, that sounds really far-fetched. So anything is possible if you're willing to work to get it done.
Yeah, and yeah, I am glad you say that you are the living proof, because how we connected is, I found you because you are actually a trailblazer. I mean, you won the Philip C. Wolfe Memorial Scholarship in the travel tech. So tell us about that, because you were the winner was it in 2022?
So,
And that was a wow, there is such a prize. And actually, for the listeners who don't know, only two people win, right? For the Focusrite, which is one of the leading travel media in the world. And you see, as a person of color, a Black person, when I saw that, my inspiration kicked in. I was like, wow, if she can do it, there you go. A
why
door is
can't I?
now open. Yeah. So let's just let's just see what happens. So yeah, I mean, well done. Tell us about that. How did you feel winning the Philip C. Memorial? And tell us about
So,
how you got
that's
there.
quite interesting because if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I've been on their radar mostly because people who took to me, who were further along in their career, whether they were a community builder, whether they were a family, a founder, they took to me. And so I would go to like the accelerated programs, the 2-day boot camps, right? Like I would just kind of go into the community, not knowing that that's pretty much how you nurture your relationships, right? And so I believe I got the email, I want to say from Walter. I want to say it's from Walter at Focusrite. And he kind of just informed me, hey, this conference is coming up. Would you like to be a part of it? You know, we've selected you based off the work that you've done, the things that you've done to join us. Are you interested? And I said, oh yeah, I'll be interested, not knowing exactly what I'm saying I'm interested in, but knowing how powerful Focusrite is, knowing how excited I am about being in a room of like other lovers of travel, right? And so it was beautiful. I went to Scottsdale, Arizona. And even then, I found myself kind of being shy, kind of saying, do I belong here? Because you're correct. I was one of the only Black female founder in a room of maybe 2,000 plus people, right? And so while most people naturally let that intimidate, because it was intimidating, just to be clear. So that's not a feeling that is not going to happen. But it was a beautiful feeling because it was just like, you stick out like a sore thumb. So you might as well make it matter for you.
Yes. And by the way, Walter is a great guy. He's the senior VP of marketing at Focusrite, I believe.
Yes. The entire Focusrite team is amazing. They met me with welcome arms. They were taking pictures for me when they were showing us on the screen, and maybe I was in another room, and they would just send it to me. The entire team at Focusrite is amazing, and I believe they featured my first startup in one of Focus Wire's publications. And so that relationship is just ongoing. But the reason why, what I would attribute, regardless if Walter did reach out to me, the reason why he reached out to me is because I continued to do the work. And now, in order for him to reach out, he has to know that I'm still actively building, right? And so whether that's me just talking on social media, posting things, articles, whatever that looks like, that's why I was considered, because I did the work even when nobody was clapping, or when, you know what I mean? Like I was still showing up, even though it wasn't going as fast as I imagined, but timing is everything. And I continued to show up, and it worked out for me. And I made some amazing connections at the conference. I think we were there for 3 or 4 days. I made some amazing connections, made some great friendships. And it has enhanced my network. It expanded my reach now.
I mean, it does. And as you were saying, what you just said is showing up and doing the posting of things. I think that's in relation to telling our story, isn't it?
It is.
Telling our story.
It is.
And so was that on LinkedIn that you were sharing your story, or is it another tool that gave you the visibility?
I'm going to have an honest moment here. The truth is, back then, I was not doing things at a founder level that I now know could have been better. And so I would sporadically post. I would occasionally, share my story. What I had on my side is the fact that I was plugged into these circles. Even though I wasn't loud about it, I was known in these little silos, right? And so hence me saying this year has been very reflective. As I reflected, I know that I have a voice. I have something worth talking about. And with Block, we're building something that's going to change the game in so many ways. And so I owe it to myself and all of my experience and all of my years of trying to show up and show out. And so now my social media posting and just sharing with the world what we're building is going to be louder, prouder, and more impactful.
So let's get into a blog. I know your platform, they're amazing, and I am truly looking forward to what you are going to be putting in place, because I kept saying that we people, Black people, we're not just good in sports or in sort of music. We can also take over in travel tech. Why not? This is where we are. And so now I want you to touch, because you did the pivot, right? So if you can share the story of your of that pivot.
Sorry,
just tell us more about that, and give us some sort of key insights or events that prompted that change.
Absolutely. So I would have to take you back to like September of 2023. So I remember being at a networking event, and they had just announced, like right after Labor Day, about the short-term rental New York type of thing. And so a young lady was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, Block helps people start their own short-term rental business." And so she said, "Oh, well, how do you feel about New York? Are you nervous now?" And I'm like, and in my mind, it was posed in a different way that had not touched my mind yet. And I was like, wait a minute. So in the moment, I was able to answer her, but I remembered that I had a conversation a while back with a friend of mine saying, we were kind of touching the idea of what's happening, challenges that short-term rental is facing, and how we're thinking about this, right? As along with this affordability crisis, lack of travel. Is people traveling? Are they not traveling? Do they want to travel? Can they afford to travel? Those type of things. And so in that moment, I knew that I needed to do something, but I didn't know what I needed to do. So I completely agreed and kind of like submitted, because I don't think anything is by chance. I think everything is very much aligned with who you as an individual are called to become. And so because I stand firm in that, I opened my heart and my ears, and I said, let's just listen for signals. Let's do some research. Let's stay heavy on this. So now I'm getting news articles coming to my phone, short-term rental, affordability crisis, home ownership. People are spending 30% of their wages go live expenses. And that's what in New York, 50% of most of the people's wages go to housing alone. And so my heart went out to those people, because while short-term rental is causing whatever from a government side, these are people who simply wanted to make an extra living, wanted to enhance the way that they lived, and they were looking for ways to create income streams. So as I dug deeper, started talking to people, not necessarily knocking on doors, but like sliding DMs, I was able to understand that it's a people problem, right? It's the disconnect between the people and the government, and both have valid points. So who can be the mediator with reason to serve them all? And so I kind of like volunteered, even though I was gently pushed in that direction. And so the call was, okay, I'm going to move to New York. When I get my feet on the ground, I'm going to fill it out, know what's going on, and kind of know which direction. But I had already said I'm moving to New York to get to the bottom of where Block should be, because we were early enough to show some proof that I'm a good founder. We were generating revenue. We had several customers. We were about to start fundraising, but something said, not yet, give me a second. And so I went in straight research mode from December 2023 through January. And in the halt, I came back to Chicago. But Chicago put the stamp on it in the sense of a community, in the sense of belonging, in the sense of why people do what they do. And people want to travel. They want to become better. They want to experience life and not feel like they have to do it because of a handout, and so home exchange is not new at all. The idea of home exchange is not new. In fact, it's a movie called The Holiday. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a movie called The Holiday where they swap like an English cottage in like a LA beautiful mansion. And these two ladies swapped across the country just because they needed a new experience. And then I did a deeper research, the Green Book. Are you familiar with the Green Book?
Yes, I am.
So I started digging in that since I've been home. And what I realized is they used to list tourist homes. And so the Green Book, for those of us who not sure, the Green Book is essentially, it was called Green Book Negro Motorists. This was during the Jim Crow era where Black people could not travel, right? And when they did, they had to be on extra alert because not only are they not sure where they're going in terms of directions, but then you had those people who wanted them dead, right? And so in the Green Book, it was pretty much almost like a roadmap of any home, any hotel, any restaurants that people of color, specifically Black, can freely go to without being concerned, worried, or even worse, killed, right? But in the Green Book, they listed tourist homes. And I was like, oh my goodness. And the tourist homes was essentially another Black family who said, I'm happy to take you in if you're on the road so that you don't have to go into a sundown town, meaning you can't be in there when the sun is down. Otherwise, anything is possible. And that is it. It made me tie my original industry to the culture. Right now, it's a cultural movement. And so it's so timely. Home exchange is so timely right now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I am really enjoying the conversation. I feel like there should be part two because every element of what you are talking about now, you're referring to the book, you're referring to the Green Book. And I must say, my knowledge of the African American culture and history is lacking, and I'm not the only one. And we need to bridge that because everything we do, whether it's in travel and music, there's something from our history that has been almost dimmed, that our forefathers and our foremothers perhaps started, revolutionized even under those circumstances. I mean, how else? Where else were they going to stay, knowing all the danger? And we have to say it. And now here we are in the new generation, and you're like, okay, I'm going to now find a blog. There's this community, there's this element, and we should be touching on those, yeah.
And let me tell you, what made this even creepier / amazing / you're on to the right angle was the Green Book started in Harlem, New York. I literally visited a cafe that was in this documentary. I visited the cafe 2-3 years earlier, not knowing the history, like you just said, right? I don't even know what made me. I think my grandmother passing, she was 90 years old, 550 plus people showed up to her funeral. I said, Grandma brought the city out, right? But it made me think like, now what if it's your turn to do that on a global scale, Samella, right? This is how you keep her legacy going. And so being able to kind of see the dots of, oh, this could be why you moved to New York. This is why you were called to move to New York, because it has some roots there behind Black travel, behind a new era, the Harlem Renaissance, right? And so while Block is not specifically, originally we were going to be just for Black travelers, but the beauty is we lead in so many things, and we're going to lead in this thing, and everybody's welcome to the barbecue. But it just has more meaning because it is rooted in a deeper why beyond myself. It's rooted in my grandmother's why, which is legacy. It's rooted in the Green Book why, which is cultural. It's rooted in this tech thing, right? Like the industry shifting to affordability. And so we're building something that is a people first business. And I'm super excited about the impact that we're going to be able to make from a responsible tourism side and just so many other amazing things.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And on that note, so I would like you to just talk to the listeners, young people, especially in the global African or anyone else, and tell us, tell them, how do they build what you are building? Essentially, give them some kind of an inspiration to end our amazing podcast, knowing that, hey, we can always come back and do this again.
A part two, right?
And then also don't remember to also add, how do they find you and where do they find you?
Yes. So a few things that I've kept with me along the journey. First of all, you do not know what you do not know, but you can always go figure it out if you wanted to know bad enough, right? And so for me, there's not a shortage of, I don't know that. Okay, that's fine. It's okay that you don't know. I don't know how to be a great founder. I don't know how to do these things, but guess what I did do? Go figure it out, right? And so you have to be relentless about figuring it out. But then you have to be open to the twists and turns of the journey, because it's so many things that's going to come along: adversity, distractions, family, fun, tired, spirit of defeat. All these things are going to come. But once you stay really close to your why, and if you believe in what you're building and the people that it's going to change, you have no choice but to stand in your post and show up and be great. And then if it's worth everything that you're thinking it is, you're going to be proud about putting your name on it. So you should show up as such. So I finish every statement with everyday language of, okay, be great, right? Because that's the goal. We all want to be great. Greatness looks different to us all. But in order to be great, you got to be willing to do the work and pay the cost of what greatness looks like. Everybody want to be the Beyonce, the Rihanna, the Oprah, the Tyler Perry. But I can guarantee you, once you start hearing about them sacrifices that they had to make, they are real. Because I've experienced. They are real. They are real. You have to make some tough choices. But in the midst of it all, as long as you choose where your heart is happy, where your passion is, and where your gifts and talents is, it's going to be absolutely worth it. And as I close, you can follow me on social media on any channels as Samella Block. So SAMELLA BLCK, no O. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's Samella Watson. And I'm happy to have conversations like this because I believe the future of people, we are here because people need to see what we're doing so that they can start unlocking what they're doing. And what we're doing is going to open up doors for other opportunities to sprout from, right? And now we can have partnerships and collaborations and growing. It's enough money for us all. So let's get it.
Absolutely. And be great, we shall. An amazing way to end this amazing chat. Thank you for being with me today, and I wish you all luck.
Thank you. It's been amazing.